Harihi Om. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashiva Samharambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru-Parampara. Shubhodaya. This is your host Soumya today. A warm welcome to everyone to this morning session of Global Festival of Oneness. This is a month-long festival on Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavadpada, covering various aspects and topics of Advaita Vedanta, which is organized by Indica Moksha. Today we have a very young speaker, Natraj Maneshinde ji, and he will be speaking on Upasya Murti as envisaged by Bhagavadpada in Prapanchasara. A brief introduction on him. Natraj is a 28-year-old engineer from Dharwad, Karnataka. He comes from a Kshatriya Maratha family and has completed his master's in electrical and computer engineering from Purdue University, USA. He currently works at Apple as a circuit design engineer. Natraj was introduced to Advaita Vedanta in his teenage days, and ever since, under the guidance of the elders of the tradition, he has been making attempts to understand more on the tenets of Advaita Sampradaya. Natraj, the format would be, we will speak for 50 minutes, and the last 10 minutes we shall reserve for questions and answers from the audiences. And you can kindly start now. Thank you.
Sharada Sharadambo Javadana Vadanambuje Sarvada Sarvadasmakam Sanidhim Kriyat Shruti Smrti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavadpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Antah Pravishteti Shasteti Yo Antaryami Shruti Ritaha Sosman Mukhya Gurupatu Vidyatirtha Maheshwaraha. Shri Guru Namaha. Good morning, everyone. I'm Natraj Maneshinde, and I'm here today to briefly offer a service to Bhagavadpada in the form of delivering this talk on this topic, Upasya Murtis envisioned by Bhagavadpada in Prapanchasara. It is known to us that moksha is the foremost among all purusharthas. And in our Advaita Sampradaya, we say that this moksha can be attained only through by the means of jnana. And this in order to attain this jnana, one needs chitta shuddhi, ekagrata, and most importantly, Bhagavad Anugraha. Right from the commencement to the conclusion of the sadhana in a fruitful manner, the role of Bhagavad Anugraha is indispensable. So in this pursuit of sadhana, Upasana is a very helping aid in order to attain Bhagavad Anugraha and thereby chitta shuddhi. So such being the nature of Upasana, let us understand what exactly is meant by Upasana in the light of Advaita Vedanta. So clarifying this, Acharya Shankara says in his Bhashya, Upasanam tu yatha shastra samarthitam kinchid alambanam upadaya tasmin samana chitta vritti santana karanam tadvilakshana pratyayan antaritam. Upasana is focusing your mind completely on some form of a alambana, on some substratum, which is Shastra Samarthita, which is endorsed by the Shastra. And while doing so, we ought to shun any thoughts that run contrary to this alambana or the substratum. So what exactly is meant by this alambana or substratum? Clarifying this, Acharya says, Upasanam nama upasyarthavadhe yatha devatadi swarupam shrutya jnapyate tatha manasopagamya asanam chintanam laukika pratyaya avyavadhanena. So Upasana is mentally approaching the form of Devata as described in the Arthavadas of Veda and contemplating on it by excluding all contrary notions. So the alambana or the substratum that was spoken of is actually the swarupa of the Devata as described in the Shastra, as described in the Veda. And what does one attain as the fruit of such an Upasana? Clarifying this, Acharya says, Tanityani upasanani sattva-shuddhikarattvena vastu-tattvava-bhasakatvat advaita-jnanopakarakaani alambana-vishayatvat sukha-sadhyani cha. So these upasanas bring about the purification of mind. It helps us with sattva shuddhi. And by doing so, it helps us in realizing the true nature of things. And thus it forms a stepping stone towards the Advaitic realization, Advaita Jnanopakarakani. And because there is an alambana, because there is a concrete form for us to focus upon, it also becomes very easy to perform this. Now that we know what Upasana is, let us try to understand what is the exact nature of the Upasya. So Acharya says, clarifying the nature of the Upasya, Acharya says, Yatra avidyakrita namarupadi vishesha pratishedhat astuladi shabdair brahmopadishyate tat param tadeva yatra namarupadi visheshena kenachit vishishtam upasana yopadishyate manomayah pranashariro bharupah ityadi shabdahi tad aparam. So in the Shastra, we find Parabrahman being described as without any attributes like asthula, etc. The attributes which are the attributes of name and form which are caused by avidya, all such attributes are negated, and the Brahman is said to be devoid of such attributes. Such a form of Brahman is Parabrahman, which is the superior Brahman, and in our Sampradaya, this is the Gneya Brahman. But when this very Nirguna Brahman, when this very Gneya Brahman is said to be with attributes, it is said to be with Namarupadi Vishesha attributes. Such Brahman with attributes like Manomayaha, Pranashariro, Bharupah, etc. This Brahman is called Apara Brahman or Upasya Brahman, and the attributes are said to be, and it is said to be of attributes in order to facilitate Upasana. So from this we understand that the Savishesha Brahma or the Maya Vishishta Brahma is the Upasya Tattva. But how does this Nirguna Brahma become something with attributes? Clarifying this, Acharya says, Syat Parmeshwarasyapi Ichhavashat Mayamayam Rupam Sadhakanugrahartam. So the Nirguna Parmeshwara, the Nirguna Brahman, out of its own will and by the virtue of its own Maya, assumes these forms in order to bless the sadhakas in their Upasana. So these attributes are assumed by Brahman by the virtue of its own Maya Shakti. And in our common day-to-day practice, we see many Upasya forms. We see some people worshipping Durga, some people worshipping Vishnu, some other people worshipping Shiva. So are these Upasya forms different? I mean, are there multiple Shakti Vishishta Brahmans, so to say? Or is it one and only one? Clarifying this, Acharya says, Ekamapi hi Brahma vibhuti bhedair anekada upasyata iti sthitihi. And in another context, he says, Eka evatu paramatmeshwarastaisthir guna vishishta upasyo yadyapi bhavati tataphi yatha gunopasanameva falani bhidyante. So from these two passages, we understand that it is one and only one Brahman. That is the Upasya Brahman ultimately. It is one and only one. But owing to its Vibhuti Veda and owing to its Vibhuti Veda, it is worshipped variously. And it is said to be worshipped possessing of various gunas. But at the end, but ultimately it is one essentially. So there are the Prasthanatra Bhashyas of Acharya. There is sufficient material which deals with Upasana. But we must bear in our minds that the Prasthanatraya Bhashyas target those set of sadhakas who are more into Jnana Marga. But in order to cater the needs of those who are inclined more towards Upasana, Acharya has composed a dedicated Upasana work called Prapanchasara Tantra. This Prapanchasara Tantra is actually a compilation of an older agamic text called Prapanchagama. It is basically a Upasana manual, a Mantra Shastra manual having detailed Upasana procedures of various Devata Swarupas. It has the details of their mantras, the Tantra, the Falashrutis, and various Stutis. So this is what Prapanchasara is all about. To our great fortune, Acharya's direct disciple, Sri Padmapada Acharya has composed a commentary on this Prapanchasara, and it is called Vivarana. In the introductory portion of his Tika, Padmapada Acharya makes a interesting remark, which gives us an insight as to why Bhagavadpada chose to author this work. So there Padmapadacharya says, Iha khalu lokanugrahi karsataya kruta sharira parigraho Bhagavan Shankaracharya Parokshi kruta paradevatatma tattvaha paramam vibhuti kashtham praptah swayam ekaki sampada lajjamano dukhikrita jana karunya manasascha san tadanugrahaya samastagama sara sangraha prapanchagama sara rupam grantham chikirshuhu. So Padmapadacharya says, Bhagavan Shankaracharya, who has assumed this human body in order to do good to the world, in order to benefit the world, after having realized the Paramatma Tattva, Paradevatatma Tattva, after having become a Jnani, he was quite tormented looking at the sufferings of the people around him. Also, he was ashamed, ashamed, so to say, that it was only him who was enjoying the Brahmananda and not others. So tormented by the sufferings of those people who are caught up in samsara, and in order to uplift them, in order to bless them, Bhagavadpada composed this work, Prapanchasara Tantra, which in itself is the which is the sara of an older agamic text called Prapanchagama, and this Prapanchagama is said to be the essence of all agamas. So basically, the essence of all agamas has been captured by Bhagavadpada in this grantha in order to benefit the people caught up in samsara. So from this remark of Padmapadacharya, we understand how compassionate Bhagavadpadacharya was. Bhagavadpadacharya was a realized Jnani. He had realized the Parabrahman, and he could have sat in a place and kept on reveling in his Atmananda, but he did not do so. He strived a lot. He took all the efforts to author Prasthanatraya Bhashyas. Not only that, he also authored this Upasana Paraka Grantha in order to bless the aspirants in all their phases of sadhana. So this is the reason why we invoke Bhagavadpadacharya as Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam. He was verily the embodiment of Karuna. And this is the reason why Totakacharya has praised Bhagavadpadacharya as Karuna Varunalaya Palayama Bhavasagar Dukkha Vidunurudhu. Such is the Karunya of our Acharya. Prapanchasara Tantra is a celebrated text in Advaita Vedanta, but unfortunately there are a few people who revel in questioning Bhagavadpadacharya's authorship of the text. Their primary argument is that Bhagavadpadacharya, the foremost among the Vedantis, could not have composed a grantha which is so patently tantric in nature, so patently agamic in nature. So such doubts on Bhagavadpadacharya's authorship are entertained by such people, probably because they find it difficult to reconcile the various facets of his multifarious personality. And they're probably, obsessed with beholding Acharyapada as merely a dry philosopher of Advaita and not as a guru, not as an Acharya who would assist his disciples, who would assist the aspirants of all temperaments in all their phases of sadhana. Hence, they find it difficult to digest that Acharyapada Shankara could have resorted to tantrika prakriyas in order to prescribe upasanas for sadhakas, so that they uplift themselves. However, whatever might be their objections, in the light of certain crucial evidence, we understand, after examining certain crucial evidence, we understand that this text has been indeed composed by Bhagavadpada, and these objections have got no merit in questioning his authorship. So let us look at a few of those evidences here. The first evidence that I would like to point to is the Tika of Padmapadacharya, as we just saw in the previous slide. So in the Tika, in the introductory portion of the Tika, Padmapadacharya clearly mentions that the author of this text is Bhagavan Shankaracharya. So this is one of our strongest evidence that we have. Secondly, in the upcoming slides, we'll be seeing this. The first Mangalacharana verse of Prapanchasara is a Mangalacharana of Sharadamba. And Padmapadacharya has written a detailed commentary on it. So if you go through this verse and if you go through this commentary, which we shall be visiting soon, we'll understand that this text, in spite of resorting to Tantrika Prakriya, is solely loyal to Advaita Vedanta. So we'll visit it in the upcoming slides, but let us bear in our minds that this commentary and the shloka through the text loyalty to Advaita Vedanta. Thirdly, this text is a celebrated work in the world of Mantra Shastra, and it has seen many commentaries. And all commentaries acknowledge Bhagavadpada Acharya himself as the author of this text. Also, the authorship is acknowledged by several other great authorities. Swami Amalananda Saraswati Ji, the author of Kalpataru, in the Devatadikarana portion, quotes a verse from Prapanchasara and attributes it to Acharya. Sri Madhavacharya, who according to some scholars was Vidyaranya Mahaswami himself in his pre-sannyasa days, in his Parashara Madhaviya, which is a commentary on Parashara Smriti, there also he quotes a verse from Prapanchasara and attributes it to Acharya. Similarly, Madhava Mantri Ji, the Kalamukha Acharya, does the same. He quotes a verse from Prapanchasara and says that it is from Acharya in his Sutta Samhita Tika, which is called Tatparya Deepika. Lastly, Raghava Bhattaji, the celebrated author of the commentary on Sharada Tilaka, he quotes Bhagavadpada Acharya on numerous instances, and everywhere he says that this work belongs to Acharya. Not only that, he also quotes from Padmapada Acharyaji's Tika and attributes it to Padmapada Acharya by name. So he authenticates the authorship of both Prapanchasara and its Tika. So in the light of such crucial evidences, I would say that it is a very difficult task to discredit Bhagavadpada Acharya's authorship of Prapanchasara. In order to conclude the discussion on the authorship, I would like to read Sir John Woodruff's words on the critics who question Bhagavadpada Acharyaji's authorship. So Sir John Woodruff says, critics of this type evidently cannot reconcile themselves to the fact that Shankaracharya, the great monist, could write a work on Mantra Shastra. They seem to be laboring under the obsession that being a monist, Shankaracharya could not have written anything which advocates sadhana, as sadhana implies dualism, for in it there must be an object of sadhana. Orthodox exponents feel that these gentlemen look upon Shankaracharya as the holder of a chair in a modern university, whose duty it is to deliver a course of lectures on monism as a theory, or perhaps that he was a speculator like some German or European philosopher who devotes himself to theorize and speculate about transcendental matters. This is mainly due to the fact of their having lost their Indian mind. Western philosophers have not succeeded in molding the religious life of their countrymen like Shankaracharya, and even lesser men did in India. It is not realized that Shankaracharya was not a mere theorist, but a teacher in the right sense of the word, a guru who sought, and that successfully, not merely to uplift and enlighten the intellect, but the very nature of sadhaka. So it is very heartening to read these words coming from Sir John Woodruff. It is to be noted that he was a Westerner. He was born and brought up as a Westerner, but he got initiated into Tantra, and he was a Paripakva Tantra Upasaka. Also, at the same time, it is quite disappointing that such a Westerner like Sir John Woodruff, who could capture the Antarya of Bhagavadpada, many of our Indians fail to do this. So now that we have an introductory idea on Prapanchasara, let us dive deep into our topic, which is Upasya Murtis as envisioned by Bhagavadpada. So in the upcoming slides, I'll be taking a few Upasya Murtis and we'll try to understand how Bhagavadpada envisioned them, how Bhagavadpada behold those Upasya Murtis in this text. I would like to begin the discussion with the Mangalacharana Shloka of Prapanchasara, where Acharya Pada invokes Sharadamba. The shloka goes like this: Akachatatapa yadyaihi saptabhir varna vargaihi virachita baha pada madhyakya rutka sakala jagadadhisha shashvata vishwayonihi vitaratu parishuddhim chetasaha sharadavaha. Here, Acharya says that Sharadamba's physical form consists of the letters, the letters of Varnamala. Her hands, feet, waist, etc. are made of these letters. And she is Vishwayoni. She is the Karana of Jagat. She is the source of Jagat. She is Shashvata. She is eternal. And she is Sakala Jagadadhisha. She is the Adhisthana of the whole Jagat. May such Sharadamba bless us with bless us with Chitta Shuddhi, utmost purity of mind. So by merely looking at the literal meaning of the shloka, we understand that Bhagavadpada envisions Sharadamba as the Adhisthana of the Jagat and as the Karana of the Jagat. And in the light of Vedanta, this such a tattva is verily the Parabrahman. So even by a cursory reading of the shloka, we understand this fact. But in order to gain a deeper insight into the purport of the shloka, we'll have to look into Padmapadacharya's Tika on it. The Tika is quite elaborate, and I won't be discussing the whole thing here. I'll try to just discuss the key points from the Tika. So in the Mangalacharana shloka, Acharya says Sharadamba is Vishwayoni. She is the source of Vishwa. She is the source of creation. But Padmapadacharya says the source of creation, the Karana of the Jagat cannot be the Jagat is Anitya, but the Karana of the Jagat cannot be Anitya. It has to be some Nitya Vastu only. Ato Nityam Kinchit Jagatupadanam Vaktavyam Nityatvancha Sarvasakshinyaha Sharada Eva Sambhavati Tityabhipretya Shashvateti. So in order to convey that this Vishwayoni, who is this Sharadamba, who is described here as Vishwayoni, is not a Anitya Vastu, but she is Nitya. In order to convey this, the word Shashvata has been used. Fine. So Sharadamba is the Jagat Karana and she is Shashvata. But at this instance, the Sankhyas can try to appropriate Sharadamba for themselves and say that this Sharadamba of yours is same as our Pradhana, as our Prakriti, which is also Nitya and which is the Jagat Karana. But this Prakriti is a Jada Vastu, hence this Sharadamba that you are trying to invoke is a Jada Vastu ultimately. Saying so, the Sankhyavadis can object. To this, Padmapadacharya says no. Such an objection of yours has been refuted by Bhagavadpada by saying Sakala Jagadadhisha, by describing Sharadamba as Sakala Jagadadhisha. So Padmapadacharya says, Acetanasya pradhanadesh chetana anadhishtitasya karanatvanupapattehe ataschidrupini sarvadhisthana samartha Sharadaiva Vishwayoni Ritabhipretya Sakaleti Sakalam Karanam Kalabhi Shaktibhi Savartata Iti Jagat Karyam Tayoho Sakala Jagatiradhishwar Ityarthaha. So Padmapadacharya says a Chetan Vastu can never be the Karana of Jagat. A Jada Vastu can never be the Karana of the Jagat. It has to be some Chetana Vastu only. Hence, in order to convey that the Sharadamba is not a Jada Vastu but a Chetana Vastu, the word Sakala Jagadadhisha has been used by Acharya. So Padmapadacharya explains the Sakala Jagadadhisha in this manner. So the word Sakala here means Sakala, that which is with Kala or that which is with Shakti. Hence this word Sakala represents Pradhana. And Jagat represents the cause, the effect of Pradhana, which is the Jagat, which is the world that we see around us. And Sharadamba is the Adhisthana, is the substratum of this Sakala and Jagat. Hence, she is the Adhisthana Chaitanya of Maya and Jagat. Hence, she is Chiti Rupini. She is Parachiti Swarupini. She is Chidrupini. She is verily the Shuddha Chaitanya. So now that we know Sharadamba is Shashvata, she is Vishwayoni, and she is the Adhisthana Chaitanya. Now the Seshwara Sankhyavadins can object saying that this Sharadamba of yours can just be the Nimitta Karana. And the Pradhana, which is superimposed on her, of which she is the Adhisthana, that can be the Upadana Karana. And by doing so, they'll be questioning the tenet of Advaita Vedanta that Brahman is the Abhinna Nimittopadana Karana of the Jagat. So Padmapadacharya refutes this, saying that no, such is not the case. In order to refute this objection of yours, Acharya Pada has composed the first line of the shloka, which says, Akashatatapayadyehi saptabhirvarna varkaihi virchita mukavaha padamadhyakirutka. So Padmapadacharya says there, Sarvavarna tadartha samushtyatmakasya pradhanasya Sharada Rupa Chaitanya adhyastatvena tad vitirekena satvat Sharadaiva tadvarena jagatupadanam nimittam chetabhipretya varnanam tad vigrahatvena tasheshatvamaha akachata tapa yadyai rityadina. So in the first line, we know that the Sharadamba is said to have the physical body, have a body composed of the Varnamala, of the letters of Varnamala. So Padmapadacharya says here, these letters of the Varnamala, the words composed by them and the meaning conveyed by those words, collectively represent the Pradhana. Hence, Sharadamba is said to have a embodiment. So Sharadamba is said to have a body composed of this Pradhana. And apart from Sharadamba, this Pradhana, because the Pradhana is superimposed on her, apart from Sharadamba, the Pradhana has got no independent existence of its own. Hence, even if we say that Pradhana is the Upadana Karan of the Jagat, because Pradhana cannot independently exist without Sharadamba, it is Sharadamba herself who is ultimately the Upadana Karan of the Jagat. Hence, she is both the Nimitta Karana and the Upadana Karana. Hence, she is the Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karana of the Jagat, is what Padmapada Acharya says here. Fine. So, so we know that Sharadamba is Shashwata, she is Vishwayoni, she is the Adhisthana Chaitanya, and she is Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karana of the Jagat. But now that we have said that she is the Adhisthana of the Jagat, she is the substratum of the Jagat, so won't the doshas of the Jagat, like Anityatva, etc., cling on to Sharadamba then, because she is the one who is holding it at the end of the day? So Padmapada Acharya says, no, such is not the case, because she is Shashwata. Because she is Shashwata, she is always of a constant form. No defects of the Jagat can cling on to her. At this moment, another objection can be raised, saying that you have said that Sharadamba is Nityaika Rupini. She is always of a constant form. But the Jagat, of which Sharadamba is said to be the source, is varied. That is multifarious. That is of a varied form. Then how can this Sharadamba, who is always of a constant form, be substratum or be the source of something that is so varied? This is the objection that someone can raise. So replying to this, Padmapada Acharya says, true, what you're saying is absolutely true. In the paramarthik sense, in the absolute sense, there is no such karanatva or adhishtatratva on Sharadamba. In the paramarthik sense, she is the Shuddha Chaitanya only, and there is no karanatva on her. But this karanatva is merely incidental. It is merely due to the aid of Maya. It is merely due to Maya, and it is Maya that is the Dwara Karana of the Jagat. So in the paramarthika sense, there is no karanatva on the part of Sharadamba, and this karanatva is only due to Maya. By saying so, Padmapada Acharya clearly conveys the Vivartavada of Advaita here. The Vivartavada states that the Brahman is Shuddha Chaitanya, is merely it is the Nirguna Brahma, it is the Shanta Brahma, and it is the Shuddha Chaitanya, and it is the Karana of the Jagat without undergoing any change on its part, and it is Maya who makes the Jagat appear. I mean, it is the Maya which is superimposed on the Shuddha Chaitanya that brings about the appearance of this Jagat. So the same tattva is conveyed here also by Padmapada Acharya. So from this discussion, we understand that Padmapada Acharya and Bhagavad Acharya beheld Sharadamba as the Upanishad Pratipadya Parabrahma, as the Upanishad Pratipadya Shuddha Chaitanya. So this is the manner in which Shankara, Bhagavadpada and Padmapada Acharya describe the tattvic nature of Sharadamba. So this was a darshanik discussion, a sort of darshanik discussion. But Bhagavadpada Acharya also has composed a stuti, praise of Sharadamba in Prapanchasara. So we'll look at a few of the verses here. So Shankaracharya says, Achalatmaja cha Durga Kamala Tripureti Bhedita Jagati Yasat Tvameva Vacha Ishwari Sarvatmana Prasida Mama. Shankaracharya says, Sharadam, so O Vagdevi, it is verily you who manifest as Achalatmaja, that is Parvati, as Durga, as Kamala, and as Tripura. Please be gracious unto me. Then in the next verse he says, Trimukhi Traiswarupe Tripure Tridashabhivanti Tangri Yuge Trikshna Vilasita Vaktre Trimurtir Mulatmike Prasida Mama. So Acharya says, you are Trimukhi, you are Traiswarupa, you are verily the form of Veda. You are worshipped by the Devatas. You are endowed with 3 eyes. You are the source of 3 Murtis. Please be gracious unto me. So here we need to observe that the Sharadamba who was described as verily the Paramatman in the previous slide, it is this Sharadamba alone who manifests as 3 Murtis, who is the source of 3 Murtis, who manifests as 3 Murtis and also as their consorts, as Durga, Kamala, etc. So this is something that we need to bear in our minds, and this is something that we will find with almost all the Bhagavad Swarupas that we'll be discussing in the further slides. So next Acharya says, Vedatmike Nirukta Jyotir Vyakarana Kalpa Shikshabhihi Sachandobhihi Satatam Trupta Shadangendriye Prasida Mama. You are verily the Veda, the Shadangas, which are the Vedangas, which are Nirukta, Jyotisha, Vyakarana, Kalpa, Shiksha, Chandas, are your 6 Indriyas. Please be gracious unto me. Then Acharya says, Bodhatmike Budhanam Hridayam Bhuja Charu Ranga Natana Pare Bhagavati Bhava Bhangakari Bhaktim Bhaktartade Prasida Mama. Acharya says that Sharadamba is Jnana Swarupini. She resides in the hearts of Jnani. Such Bhagavati is the bestower of bhakti, which destroys the fear of samsara. So, such bestower of good, please be gracious unto me. So, then, so this was all about the tattvic nature of Sharadamba. In order to help the aspirants with a concrete form to meditate upon, Acharya prescribes a dhyana shloka for Sharadamba. And that goes something like this. Panchashad varna bhedair vihitavadanadoh padayu kukshi vaksho desham bhasvat kaparda kalita shashikala mindu kundavadata akshasra kumbhachinta likhita varakaram trikshanam padma sanstha macha kalpa matuchchastana jagana bharam bharatim tam namami. So Bhagavati Bharati, who is none other than Sharadamba, is seated on a lotus. She is 3-eyed and she is of a transparent brilliancy. She is white as the moon and as white as the jasmine flowers. The 50 letters make her hands, feet, belly, etc. On her head are the coils of hair. And she bears a crescent moon on it. And in her forearms, she holds a Rudraksha Mala, a Sudha Kalasha, a book, and Chinmudra. So this is the physical form that Acharya invokes. And it is quite interesting to note that this form matches closely with the Sharadamba whom we worship in Sringeri. So to conclude this discussion on Sharadamba, we understand that Bhagavadpada Acharya and Padmapada Acharya beheld Sharadamba as verily the Upanishad Pratipadya Parabrahma. And it is this Parabrahma and it is this Sharadamba who as Parabrahman manifests in the form of Trimurtis and their consorts. And she is verily Veda Swarupini and Shastra Swarupini. And one more point that we can add to this is this form of Sharadamba, which Bhagavadpada invokes in Prapanchasara, is verily the same form that is worshipped in Sringeri as well. So let us look at another Bhagavad Swarupa discussed by Acharya in this text. So that Swarupa is of Bhagavati Bhuvaneshwari. Acharya dedicates a good portion of Prapanchasara in order to describe Upasana rituals of Bhuvaneshwari. But the aspect that I would like to focus here is Bhagavati Bhuvaneshwari as the Suryantargata Chaitanya. So there is a 4-lettered mantra called Chaturakshari Bhuvaneshwari mantra in Prapanchasara. And while describing the Dhyana Shloka of this mantra, Acharya describes Bhuvaneshwari as the Suryantargata Chaitanya. So the Dhyana Shloka is something like this. Bhasvad Ratnau Ghamaulis Puradamruta Rucho Ranjayacharu Rekham Samyak Santapta Karta Swara Kamala Japa Bhasurabhi Prabhabihi Vishwa Kashavakasham Jwalayada Shishiram Dhartrupashankucheshtha Bhiti Bhiti Nam Bhangitungas Tanamavatu Jagan Maturarkam Vapurvaha. Here Acharya says that Bhuvaneshwari, the very physical form of Bhuvaneshwari, her physical orb itself is the Surya Mandala, is the Aditya Mandala. So she has Surya himself for her physical body. She is red-hued in luster. She wears a crown studded with gems, and she has a Chandrakala on it. And in her forearms, she bears Pasha, Ankusha, Varada, and Abhaya. So describing more on her aspect as the Suryantargata Chaitanya, Acharya says, Evamesha Jagatsutihi Savite Tyavidhiyate. So Bhuvaneshwari is verily the Savitru Tattva. And she's called Savita because she's she's Jagat Prasavitri, because she gives birth to this Jagat. She is the Jagat Karana Brahma, and which is why she's called Savita here. And she's also the Savitru Tattva, which is worshipped in Gayatri mantra, as stated by Acharya. Acharya says, Gayatri Gayakatrananat Bhavet. She's Gayatri because she protects those who chant her mantra. Further, Acharya says, Sarva Vyapta hi sa shakti shashvat bhaskara rupini swabhasa kramate yatra tatrasya sitirishyate. So this Bhuvaneshwari is the all-pervading Shakti who shines by her own effulgence in the Surya Mandala. So from this we understand that Bhuvaneshwari is verily the Savitru Tattva, the Savitru Mandala Antargata Tattva, which we worship by the means of Gayatri mantra. So as in the case of Sharadamba, Shankaracharya also composes a stuti on Bhuvaneshwari, and it is quite an elaborate one. I won't be reading out all these shlokas, but the essence of these shlokas is that Bhuvaneshwari, who is the Jagat Karana Brahma, as discussed in the previous slide, it is verily her who takes recourse to Rajoguna and appears as Brahma and performs the Srushti Karya, the Jagat Srushti Karya. And it is this Bhuvaneshwari herself who, resorting to Sattva Guna, appears as Narayana and looks after the sthiti of the Jagat. And during the Samhara Kala, it is verily her who, by assuming Tamo Guna, she appears as Rudra and performs the Samhara of the Jagat. Not only that, in the next three shlokas that you see in the screen, there it is said that Bhuvaneshwari is not just the three Murtis but also their consorts. It is she who manifests as Rama, Uma and Saraswati. So as described in the case of Sharadamba, Acharya also describes Bhuvaneshwari here as the Paramatman, who manifests as the Trimurtis for Jagat Srishti, Sthiti and Samhara, and as their consorts. So in the vision of Bhagavadpada, Bhuvaneshwari is the Suryantargata Chaitanya. She is the Jagat Karana Brahma who appears as the Trimurtis in order to perform Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara of the Jagat. Let us look at the next dhyana, the next Upasya Swarupa envisioned by Acharya. So in the 17th chapter of the work, Acharya describes the Upasana of Bhagavan Ganapati. And the dhyana shloka of Bhagavan is something like this. Bijapura Gadekshu Karmuka Rucha Bijapura Gadekshu Karmuka Ruja Chakrabja Pashotpala Vriyagrasva Vishana Ratna Kalasha Prodhyat Karamboruha Dhyeyo Vallabhaya Sapadma Karaya Shlishto Jolad Bhushaya Vishwotpatti Vipatti Samsthiti Karo Vigno Vishishtartadaha. So Bhagwan is invoked here in his Dashabhuja Swarupa. And Acharya says that Bhagwan holds a pomegranate, a gada, a sugar cane, a trishula, a chakra, a lotus, pasha, utpala, and dhanyavallari, grains, in his 10 hands. He bears a Ratna Kalasha in his trunk and is embraced by his consort, Vallabha Devi, who is holding a Padma. And such form of Bhagavan Vigneshwara, who does good, who grants all the wishes of his devotee, is said to be Vishwotpatti Vipatti Samsthiti Karo. So Bhagavan Vigneshwara, Bhagavan Ganesha, is the Srishti, is the Vishwa Utpatti Karaka, is the Vishwa Vipatti Karaka, and he is the Vishwa Samsthiti Karaka. So here also Acharya describes Bhagavan Ganapati as the Jagat Karana Brahma, as the Jagat Karana Brahma who looks after the Srishti, Sthiti and Samhara of the Jagat. And this conviction that Vigneshwara is the Jagat Karana Brahma is not only unique to Acharya, but it can be seen in the succeeding Advaita Acharyas as well. So I would like to quote a couple of instances in this context. So in the Sankshep Sharirika of Sarvajñatma Muniji, there is a Mangalacharana shloka invoking Bhagavan Vigneshwara. There, Sarvajñatma Muniji says that Bhagavan Vigneshwara he praises Bhagavan Ganapati as Soyam Vishwahite Rato Vijayate Vigneshwaro Vishwakrut. So he praises Ganapati as Vishwakrut there, suggesting that he is the Jagat Karana Brahma. Similarly, even Anandagiri Acharya in his Shastra Deepika. Shastra Deepika is actually a tika authored by Anandagiri Acharya on the Vradarannika Bhashyavartika of Sureshwar Acharya. There in the Mangalacharana shloka, while invoking Ganapati, he says, Shobhamativa bhajate srajate jaganti. Ganapati is described there as creating these multiple universes. So from these evidence, we understand that Bhagavan Ganapati, as envisioned by Bhagavadpada Acharya, is verily the Jagat Karana Brahma in our Sampradaya. So let us move on to the next Bhagavad Swarupa. Prapanchasara Tantra has many Upasana procedures of Bhagavan Shiva as well. So there is Upasana prescribed for Parvati Sameta Panchavaktar Sadashiva, and there are Upasanas on Panchabrahmas, the Ishana, Tatpurusha, etc., five faces of Bhagavan Shiva. There is an Upasana for Mrityunjaya Swarupa of Shiva as well. But the aspect of Bhagavan Shiva that I would like to focus in this talk is that of Bhagavan Dakshinamurti. It is known to us. It is known to all that the form of Bhagavan Dakshinamurti is quite dear to all Advaitians. This is evidenced by the fact that we invoke Bhagavan Dakshinamurti in our Vedantic studies. So whenever we start our Vedantic study, in the Shanti Patha, the Mangalacharana that we do before commencing our study, we invoke Bhagavan Dakshinamurti with this shloka, which is interestingly composed by Sureshwaracharya. We say, Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Gumavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtayanam. This is how we invoke Dakshinamurti Bhagavan. Also, Bhagavadpada was quite inclined towards this form of Acharya, this form of Shiva, which is quite evident from his Dakshinamurti Stotra, the one that runs Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari, Tulyam Nechantargatam. So this Dakshinamurti Stotra and its Tika, composed by Sureshwaracharya, called Manasolasa, these texts in themselves are a Vedantic Prakarana Grantha. So from this we understand the importance that we have for Bhagavan Dakshinamurti in our tradition. So given the inclination of Bhagavadpada towards Dakshinamurti, it isn't surprising that he would dedicate a portion of this text in his for his Upasana. So the Dhyana Shloka that Acharya prescribes for Dakshinamurti is something like this. Mudram Bhadrarthadatrim Saparusho Harinam Bahubhir Bahumekam Chanva Saktam Dadhano Bhujagavara Sama Baddha Kaksho Vatadha Asinas Chandra Khanda Pratighatita Jata Kshira Gaurastrinetro Dadya Dadhyai Shukadyair Muni Bhirabinuto Bhavashuddhim Bhavovaha. Acharya says, Bhagavan Dakshinamurti is seated beneath a banyan tree. He holds a deer, an axe, and Chinmudra in his three hands, while the fourth hand rests on his knee. He has a snake wrapped around his waist. He bears a Chandrakala on his matted hairlocks. He is three-eyed and is of a fair complexion. May such Bhagavan Shiva, Bhagavan Bhava, who is surrounded by Shuka and other Munis, bestow Bhavashuddhi upon us, bestow purification of mind upon us. So in this Dhyana Shloka, Acharya conveys that the prime purpose of performing Bhagavan Dakshinamurti's Upasana is to secure Chitta Shuddhi. And it is this Chitta Shuddhi that will ultimately help us attain the Advaita Jnana, which we also saw in the Bhashya passage in our initial slides, where Acharya said, Tanityani Upasanani Sattva Shuddhi Karatvena Vastu Tattvava Bhasakatvat Advaita Jnanopakarakani. That one ultimately attains Advaita Jnana on performing Bhagavan's Upasana is clearly stated by Bhagavadpada in the Falashruti of Bhagavan Dakshinamurti's Upasana. So, describing the Falashruti of this Upasana, Acharya says, Japtaiva mantramenam dinamanu girisham puja itvacha hutva natvastutva manovak tanubhi bhiravahita prapya kamana sheshan va vyakhyata chagamanam bhuvikavishu sadhu vedantavadi vadit sodvaita vidya vimalatara matir yati shaivam padam tat. So Acharya says, he who performs this Upasana of Bhagavan Dakshinamurti devotedly, such a person becomes an expert in discoursing upon Agamas. He becomes Bhuvikavishuvara. He becomes an incredibly expert in Kavita. He'll be blessed with incredible Kavita Shakti. He'll become a Vadit. He'll become an accomplished debater. Most importantly, he'll become a Vedanta Vedi. He'll become a knower of Vedanta. And having attained this knowledge of Vedanta, he says, so Vadit Sodvaita Vidya Vimalatara Yati Shaivam Padam Tat. So having become the knower of Vedanta, he verily attains the Advaita Vidya, the Shuddha Advaita Vidya, and thereby he becomes Bhagavan Shiva himself. He ultimately becomes the Parabrahman himself, Parabrahma himself. So here we see a beautiful illustration of the scheme, that Upasana leads to Chitta Shuddhi, Chitta Shuddhi leads to Jnana, and by becoming a Jnani, one ultimately becomes the Brahman himself, Brahman itself. So as in the case of other Bhagavad Swarupas, Acharya has also composed a Shiva Stuti in Prapanchasara. In this Stuti, Acharya says, Namo Viranchi Vishnuvesha Bhedena Paramatmane Sargasthiti Samhara Vyavrutti Vyakta Vrittaye. So Acharya says, Pranams to the Paramatman. So let us remember that this is a Shiva Stuti, where Acharya says, Pranams to Paramatman, who as Virinchi, Vishnu and Isha, as Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, appears in order to look after the Sarga, Sthiti and Samhara of the Jagat. So as described in the case of Sharadamba and as described in the case of Bhuvaneshwari, so also here Acharya describes Bhagavan Shiva as the Paramatman who manifests as the Trimurtis, who performs the Sarga, Sthiti, Samhara of the Jagat. Next Acharya says, Namo Dehardha Kantaya Dakta Dakshadvaraya Cha Chaturvargeshva Bhishtartha Daine Mai Nenave. So Namo Dehardha Kantaya. Acharya says, pranams to him whose body is one with that of his consort, who is one with that of Parvati. So here we need to note that this Swarupa of Uma Maheshwara, Parvati Parameshwara, is quite dear to Acharya. And this can be evidenced in his Kenopanishad Bhashya, where Bhagavadpada describes Bhagavati Uma, Himagiri Sutta Uma, as verily the Brahma Vidya, and she is said to be in ever union with her beloved consort, Bhagavan Shiva, who is described there as Sarvagna Ishvara. So Acharya says there in the Kenopanishad Bhashya, Umaiva Himavato Duhita Haimavati Nityameva Sarvagna Ishvarena Savartate. So Brahma Vidya Swarupini Uma resides eternally with her pati, who is Bhagavan Shiva, who is verily the Sarvagna Ishvara, the Jagat Karana Brahma. So Namo Dehardha Kantaya Dabda Dakshadvaraya Cha. So pranams to one who has Uma as his Ardhangi and who had destroyed the Yajna of Daksha, and who bestows Chaturvida Purusharthas on his devotees, and who is as subtle as an Anu, and who is the mind, the possessor of Maya. And this word mind reminds us the sentence from Shvetashvatara Shruti, which says, Mayantu Prakritim Vidyat Mayantu Maheshwaram. So that's something that strikes our mind when we read this word mind here. In the next verse, Acharya says, Bhasmabhyaktaya Bhaktana Bhukti Mukti Pradayine Vyakta Vyakta Swarupaya Shankaraya Namo Namaha. Pranams to Shankara, who has smeared bhasma all over his body, who bestows both bhoga and moksha upon his disciples, upon his devotees, and who is both the manifest and unmanifest. Tattvataha, Bhagavan Shiva is the Parabrahma, is the Sarva Vyapaka Parabrahma, and all that exists is verily Bhagavan Shiva. In order to build this conviction in a sadhaka, the Shastra prescribes Bhagavan Shiva's Upasana in the form of Ashtamurtis. And this Ashtamurti Swarupa, as an aid to realize the Sarva Vyapakatva, the Sarvatmatva of Bhagavan, Bhagavadpada Acharya recommends this Ashtamurti Upasana as an aid in his Dakshinamurti Ashtaka. There he says, Bhuram bhamse nalo nilom baramahar nato himanshu puman itya bhati characharatmakamidam yasyeva murtyashtakam nanyat kinchana vidyate vimrushatam yasmat parasmat vibhoho tasmai Shri Guru-Murtaye namaidham Shri Dakshinamurtaye. obeisance to Dakshinamurti, who is the Guru, whose eightfold form is verily this world, this Characharatmaka Jagat, which comprises of earth, water, fire, air, sky, sun, moon, and human being, and beyond whom the greatest and the omnipresent, Vibho, nothing else exists. So as described in Dakshinamurti Ashtaka, Bhagavadpada Acharya also hints to the Ashtamurti Swarupa of Bhagavan in this Stuti of Prapanchasara, where he says, Viyan marudhuta vaha var vasundhara makhesharavya vrta mayukha murtaye namas sada naraka bhaya va bhedine bhave hano bhava bhayabhanga krut vibho. Pranams to that. Pranams to that Vibho, the omnipresent one, who appears as the ether, air, fire, water, earth, sun, moon, and as an Agnihotri Brahmana. May he destroy our fear of samsara right here. So from this discussion on Bhagavan Shiva, we understand that Bhagavadpada Acharya viewed Bhagavan Shiva as the Parabrahman, who is the source of Trimurtis, who grants Chitta Shuddhi to us and ultimately helps us attain moksha, and who appears as Ashtamurtis in order to bless us in our Upasana. So the next Bhagavad Swarupa that I would like to discuss is that of Bhagavan Vishnu. And as in the case of other Bhagavad Swarupas, there are elaborate Upasana procedures prescribed in Prapanchasara. There is a chapter dedicated to Narasimha. There is a chapter dedicated to Varaha. There is also a chapter dedicated for Krishna. But the aspect that I would like to focus here is Bhagavan Vishnu as described as the Pranava Pratipadya Brahma by Bhagavadpada. So there is a chapter in Prapanchasara which describes the Upasana of Pranava, which has the details on Pranava Upasana. There, while prescribing the Dhyana Shloka for Pranava Upasana, for the Upasana of Omkara, Acharya prescribes the Dhyana of Saguna Vishnu, Chaturbhuja Vishnu. So the verse runs something like this. Vishnu Bhasvat Kiritang Gada Valaya Yuga Kalpa Haro Tarangri Shroni Rupam Savaksho Mani Shroni Rupam Savaksho Mani Makara Mahakundala Manditangam Hastodya Chakra Shankam Bhuja Gada Mamalam Pita Kausheya Masha Vidyotat Bhasa Mudyat Dinakara Sadrusham Padma Sanstham Namami. So Bhagavan Vishnu is described here in his Chaturbhuja Swarupa, holding a Shankha, Chakra, Gada and Padma. He is adorned in various ornaments and has the Kaustubhamani on his chest. He is stationed in a lotus and is lustrous like the morning sun. So describing the Falashruti of this Upasana, Acharya says, Ityevam Pranava Vidihi Samiritoyam Bhaktya Tam Prabhajati Yo Chapati Bhedaihi Samprapnotyanuta Nitya Shuddha Buddha Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Narakriha. So one who performs the Pranava Upasana by visualizing Bhagavan Vishnu, he verily attains the Nitya Buddha Shuddha Pada of Vishnu, the Paramapada of Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. So by Tad Vishnu by saying Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam, it is meant that one verily becomes Vishnu, that one verily becomes the Paramatman. So that is what is conveyed here. So there is also Vishnu Sthiti in the Prapanchasara, where Acharya describes the Swarupa of Bhagavan. Here, Acharya says, Prasida Vyakta Vistirnana Manoranu Prasida Ardrartra Jatina Prasidantantadayina. O unmanifest one, you are the mightiest among the mighty, subtlest among the subtle, most loving of the loving. Be gracious unto me, who are the end of all ends. The next shloka is quite clinching. So Bhagavadpada says there, Namo Vibhinna Gneyamsha, Namo Smrtipathathiva, Namas Trimurtir Bhedena, Sargastityanta Hetave. Pronouns to him who is known in his various partial appearances, who is beyond all remembrances, and who manifests as the Trimurtis and looks after the Sarga, Sthiti and Samhara of the Jagat. As in the case of Sharadamba, as in the case of Bhuvaneshwari, as in the case of Bhagavan Shiva, Acharya describes Bhagavan Vishnu also here as the paramatman who manifests as the Trimurtis and who looks after the Sargasthiti Samhara of the Jagat. Next, Acharya says, Vishvaya Vishwavandyaya Vishwabhutatmane Namaha Namostu Yogidhyayaya Namostadhyatma Rupine. You are the whole universe. You are worshipped by the whole universe. You are verily the Atman of all beings. Pranams to you, who is the goal of yogis and who is verily the verily the Adhyatma Surupa, the verily the Atman. Bhukti Pradaya Bhaktanam Namaste Muktidayine Manovak Kaya Cheshtha Su Dhyanastuti Namaskriya. So here one can see Bhagavadpada Acharya's bhakti, utmost bhakti for Vishnu. Acharya says, Pranams to Bhagavan who bestows both bhoga and moksha on his devotees. May all the actions of my mind, word and body be the dhyana, stuti and namaskara of Bhagavan Vishnu. So from this discussion we understand that Bhagavadpada Acharya viewed Bhagavan Vishnu as the Pranava Pratipadya Paramatma who manifests as the Trimurtis and performs the Sargasthiti and Samhara of the Jagat. The last Upasya Swarupa that I would like to discuss is that of Bhagavan Surya. So there is a chapter where Acharya discusses Surya Upasana, and the Dhyana Shloka of Surya prescribed there is something like this. Aruna Saroruha Samstha Stridruk Arunoruna Saroja Yugaladhara Kalita Bhayavarado Dyuti Bimbo Mita Bhushanastvino Vatuvaha. So here Acharya says that Bhagavan Surya is seated on a red lotus. He has an extremely lustrous orb and he is adorned in ornaments. He is three-eyed and has 4 arms. He holds 2 lotuses in his 2 hands and shows Abhaya and Varada Mudra in his other 2 hands. This is a stula description, a quite gross description of stula description of Bhagavan Surya. But in order to get a tattvic insight into the Swarup of Surya Bhagavan, one must look into the Gayatri Patala of Prapanchasara. So in this chapter, in this Gayatri Patala, Acharya composes various shlokas to reveal the meaning of every word of Gayatri Mantra. We shall see a couple of shlokas here, a few shlokas here. So describing the nature of Savita Devata, Acharya says, Tad Dvitiyeka Vachana Manenakhila Vastunaha Srishtyadi Karanam Tejo Rupam Aditya Mandale Abhidheyam Paranandam Parabrahma Vidhiyate. So the word Tat described in Gayatri Mantra, so explaining its meaning, Acharya says that this word Tat denotes the Ananda Swarupa Parabrahman itself. So this Tat is the Parananda Parabrahma itself, who is stationed in the Aditya Mandala in his lustrous form and who performs the Srishti Sthiti Samhara of the Jagat. So describing why the significance of the word Savita, Acharya says, Yattu Saviturityuktam Shashteka Vachanatmakam Dhatorya Samutpannam Prani Prasavavachakat Sarvasam Prani Jatina Miti Prasavitus Sada. So there Bhagavan Surya is described as Savita there because he's Prasavita. He's the creator of all the creatures. He's the creatrix of the Jagat. Hence he's called Savita. And describing the method of meditation of Bhagavan Surya, Acharya says, Dhyai Chintayamato Dhatur Nishpannam Dhimahityadaha Nigamadyena Divyena Vidyarupena Chakshusha Drushyo Hiranmayo Devo Aditya Nitya Samstitaha Hinata Rahitam Tejo Yasya Syatsa Hiranmaya. So Acharya says that Bhagavan Savita should be contemplated upon based on the understanding that one has gained from the knowledge of Veda. And Bhagavan Surya must be beheld as the Hiranmaya Deva who is situated in the solar orb, in the Aditya Mandala. And he must be thought of as Hiranmaya because his teja, his luster is devoid of anything that is despicable. It is Hinata Rahita, which is why he must be envisioned as Hiranmaya. And lastly, and most importantly, he must be meditated upon with Sohama Bhava. One must meditate on this Suryantargata Bhagavan as verily one's own Atman. So Acharya says there, Ya Sukshmaha Sohamityevam Chintayamaha Sadaivatu. So one must behold Bhagavan Surya as verily one's own Atman. So from this discussion on Surya, we understand that Acharya Pada behold Bhagavan Surya as verily the Parabrahman, who is the Jagat Karana, who is the Savita, who is the Savitru Tattva. So I would like to summarize the discussion in a few words. So from our discussion, we understand that Prapanchasara Tantra is a text composed by Bhagavadpada which adopts agamic prakriya in order to facilitate the upasana of the sadhakas. And as we have seen in these slides, this text is in total harmony with the spirit of Vedanta. Though it adopts the Tantrika Prakriya, it is totally loyal to Advaitic Siddhanta, and it aids Advaitic realization as a stepping stone towards it. And in this text, Acharya preaches the upasana of the same Parabrahman, of the one and the same Parabrahman in the form of Devi, Ganapati, Surya, Shiva, and Narayana. And at every step, Acharya reminds the sadhakas that these manifestations are essentially one, are essentially the same Brahman. And related to this, another thing that is quite patent in all these pramanas that we just looked, and that is the concept of Trimurti Abheda in our Siddhanta. So in the case of Sharadamba, in the case of Bhuvaneshwari, in the case of in the case of Shiva, and in the case of Vishnu, Acharya explicitly states that this Upasya Swarupa that I'm discussing currently is verily the Paramatman who manifests as the Trimurtis. So in all these cases, Acharya says that it is the same Paramatman who manifests variously as the Trimurtis. So from this we understand that that this concept of Trimurti Abheda is quite central to us. It is our central tenet in Advaita Vedanta. And this has been beautifully summarized by Bhagavan Sureshwaracharya in his Brihadaranyaka Bhashyavartika, where Sureshwaracharya ji says, Iha prithivyamitī shosa vantaryami Jagadguru harir brahma pinakiti bhaudai kopi giyate. Here Acharya says, the Antaryami, who is said to be residing within the Prithvi Devata, who is the Antaryami, who is the Jagadguru, is essentially one, but he is spoken of variously as Hari, Brahma, and Pinaki, as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So from these evidences that we saw in Prapanchasara, and also this shloka from Vartikacharya, we understand that we Advaitians behold the same Paramatman as manifesting variously in the form of Trimurtis. So this concept of Trimurti Abheda is quite dear to all our acharyas. So with these summarizing remarks, I conclude my talk. Bhava eva bhavan iti me nitara samajayat chetasi kautukita mama varaya moha mahajaladhim bhava shankara deshika me sharanam. Shri Sadguru Charanaravinda Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Natraji, for that profound talk. So we have a couple of questions. We'll only take 3 questions. The first question is, how do we understand the school of Purva Paksha that is being negated here? There is no explicit mention of Sankhya in this slide, right? It is only...
To keep things brief, I did not mention the whole Tika there. But if you look into the Tika of Bhagavadpada, he names the schools. He names the Sankhya, he names the Seshwara Sankhyavadis as well. And to get a better insight, there is another Tika called Prayoga Deepika, which is a Tika on Padmapadacharya's Tika. So that has been published by Sir John Woodruff. And if you look there, you'll get a more closer discussion on this Purva Paksha.
Thank you. Next question is, does the text lay stress on sadhaka getting initiated by an accomplished acharya?
Yeah, that is quite patent. If you look into a few of the chapters, if you look particularly the concluding chapters of Prapanchasara, there the concepts of Guru Sushrusha, they have been emphasized a lot. So I mean, getting the Diksha from a competent acharya is a must in the view of acharya, in the view of Bhagavadpada as well.
So Vasudevan Ji says that excellent Vyakaranam, and his doubt is Prapanchasara is an exponential of Mantra Shastra that mentions Sri Vidya's 12 traditional teachers and 12 forms of Mula Mantra. It's said as Sakta by Shankara, but how is it attributed to Shakti only of Tridevi, or does Shakti here represents the combination of Tridevi as one? Please elaborate.
Can you restate the last part again, please?
It says it is attributed to Shakti
Mhm.
only of Tridevi, or does Shakti here represents the combination of Tridevi as one?
Per my understanding, it is the Shakti is one and only one, ultimately, which is described as Prakriti and Bhuvaneshwari in the text. So it is this Shakti that manifests as the three Devis and other forms as well, as Tripura and other forms as well. So all the manifestations of Devi are ultimately Para Prakriti or Bhuvaneshwari in this context.
Okay, sure. I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you for this talk and answering all the questions. Audiences, see you again at 7 p.m. today in the evening session. We have a talk by Deepa Bhaskaran on developing mindfulness and focus through Sadguna Upasana. Thank you.